apologies. And we have Anne, Gareth, Christine and Joan. Have you any declarations of interest? No. None? No. I've got no urgent matters.
Chair, could I'm not sure when to ask this, could I ask a question now, please? Are we intending to go back to the pre-meetings before scrutiny? Because I think members do find them quite useful in preparing our questions, and coming to a meeting called like this isn't quite the same, I feel. So I don't know what other members feel, but is there any technical reason why we can't have a short pre-meeting? Thank you, Chair.
I'd like to second that.
Okay, well, it's a good question, and I personally see no reason why we can't. I'll ask Rianne, is it possible, or is the reason why we haven't? Is it because of opening up here? Because I was here at 15:15, so I could have met with you, but
yeah, yes, at the moment, that's why we're just trying to make sure everybody's now familiar with the platform we're using. That's why we're not having them at the moment. I think it's a discussion we can have at the Scrutiny Chairs and Vice Chairs group as well, because Steve knows a bit more than I do about how these things work. But I think we'd either have to open a separate meeting up and close that down and open this one as the formal meeting. Or I know there are breakout rooms available on Zoom, which I think we could use as well as a pre-meeting. Or another alternative is we could have a pre-meeting on a different day. Now, if everybody's joining from home, that probably wouldn't be a problem. We did them before, just immediately before everybody was here. But it's a few options we can have a look at, I'm sure.
Just
Bobby's mic's on, but off rather.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
I had checked that it was off. I don't know how it came back on. Yes, we had a completely separate meeting, and then we went out of it, and then we went to cabinet briefing. So it obviously is possible to just have a pre-brief.
Reece, can we look at that then? Yeah. Can we look into it? Yeah, good point. And we will look into it. And we've got feedback now.
You sounded a bit like Doctor Who. Da, 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 da.
Can everybody hear me now?
Got any member for the group here, for the committee?
Oh, the wonders of technology.
We're having our rooms decorated. I've just found this.
That's probably worth a fortune, Emrys.
Well, it's still working.
Get it on the internet. Get it on eBay.
Oh, I won't part with it. My grandson's terrified of it.
Who are you going to exterminate, Emrys?
Have a look.
Oh.
Switch it on.
Exterminate! Exterminate! Exterminate!
There we go. End of meeting.
Thank you. Thank you. You've got an inner child there, Emrys.
It's always been there.
I'll have to be a Dalek for a minute because we're having problems with you hearing me. Don't make it laugh. Oh. Right. This is on. This is off, but they're not hearing me. So
I can hear you. I can hear you, Jeanette. Yeah,
you can hear me now.
yeah.
Hooray. All right, so we can go to the minutes then. We'll go for accuracy, first of all, on page 6, 7, and 8. No matters arising, 6, 7, and 8. Do you have any issues, anybody? I can't see any hands raised. Okay, so can I have a show of hands? Proposer, Melvin, seconder Reese, and all those in favour. Thank you. Now, Bobby, are you here for number 5?
Yes.
Is Phil joining us?
Yes. And Ben.
I can't see if. Where are you?
I am here.
Ah, there you are. Nice to see you, Phil. Good morning. Well, who's going to lead us on this then?
I'll lead off, Jeanette. I'm going to turn off my video because in case it's echoey. So this report today is about the catchily titled Community Support Services Market Position Statement. It's around 4 years since we produced our last MPS, and it seems appropriate post-pandemic to renew and update our position to reflect changes going forward. The report before you today sets out in detail what we offer to the market and summarises current needs and priorities. This will help current and potential providers, which includes the independent sector, third sector, not-for-profit, social enterprise, etc., to develop and shape their care and support for adults who need care in Denbighshire. Our last market position statement was finalised in 2017, and obviously there've been not just the pandemic, but there's been other sort of legislation that has come on board for that. So this new one is for 21 till 24, and it's in your appendix number 1. It's been fully updated to reflect the new evidence of needs and demands, new priorities and directions of travel, and some summary detail of specific plans for new developments where these are already known. It also includes a brief chapter on the impacts of the COVID-19 crisis in terms of how we must respond and shape our social care planning and delivery. Obviously, the Social Services and Wellbeing Wales Act remains the underpinning strategic document for all our commissioning plans. Our MPS makes clear our focus on early intervention, increasing preventative services within the community, helping people to maintain their independence, and ensuring that people have voice, choice and control when it comes to their care and support. We will therefore be seeking to work with and commission from providers who embrace all these things, having meaningful conversations with people, connecting people with what matters to them, enabling people to maximise their independence and take control of their lives, building on the strengths and abilities of people to identify individual solutions. The report is quite extensive and very clear, and I'm sure the Scrutiny Committee will have some comments or ideas to add to this, and I look forward to hearing them. We have Phil Gilroy, Head of Service, and Ben Chandler as his sidekick to answer any technical questions you have. So I'll leave it up to you, committee, to see what you think.
Thank you, Bobby. Phil, do you want to come in?
Nothing really to add. Bobby's covered it well. I think the only thing she possibly didn't say was this is Welsh Government require it. 2007.
Can you just
Yeah.
turn
I
on the video?
think Phil was saying that this is a Welsh Government requirement for all councils to achieve, but they do it at their own pace and you know, when they think is appropriate, and this is when we think ours is appropriate. I think that's what he was saying. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I did say that. Can you hear me now? I've switched my video off. I do apologise. Well done, Bobby. Yeah, I'm not sure Ben would like to be referred to as my sidekick, but he's here to answer the hard questions that I can't answer.
Okay, so we'll open it up for some questions now, if that's okay, and we'll start with Emrys.
Thank you, Bobby.
Brief report, introduction to the report which I read last night. I
remember us discussing this a few years ago, to be honest, when we were putting it in place. And I don't think there are many additional comments that I can make to what I did then. But just to draw attention to one section on calling for the Welsh provision. I notice in the reports that it does refer specifically in the south of the county to the need for that provision. I know from experience, from personal experience as a family and also friends who live in the Ruthin area, when somebody needs to go to a care home, quite often they go out of their community and down to the coast, and these are Welsh speakers. I can think of an aunt who lived in Panditydr, for example, who had to go to Rhyl. So this provision has to be available in Welsh across the county and not just in the most Welsh rural areas. From experience, you know, they're out of their areas, and if you join that with the condition of these people with the dementia, it's important that they get the best possible care in their first language, wherever they are in Denbighshire, of course.
Okay.
Thanks. I think that, yeah, I agree with you. And it's not people with Welsh language needs don't just live in rural areas; they do live on the coast as well. So we do make sure, try to make sure that wherever possible that they can have their care met in the language of their choice. Okay. But it's not always easy, as we know.
Can I ask, on page 19, in the middle paragraphs there, about having meaningful conversations with people and connections, it doesn't always work that. So how do we monitor those providers who fail to give the care needed with maybe sending in complaints?
Any complaints go to our contracts and commissioning team, who are the ones who regulate and monitor, alongside our colleagues in CIW, of course, in terms of their responsibility. We work with providers who have had complaints made against them to try and get them to address those things. If they can't do it voluntarily, then we enter into what is called escalating concerns, which is a formal process, and that includes a range of different bodies depending on what the issues are. So if it was a nursing home, for example, we would include Betsy, Cadwallader Health Board in the escalated concern, just to make sure that if it's about a clinical issue, that they've got the skills and the knowledge in relation to that. And generally what we expect from providers then is that they will pull together an action plan that enables them to address the issues that have been raised. And the ultimate sanction, if they can't address those issues, if it's a regulation issue, CIW have the power to close them down. If it's just a general contracting issue, we can choose to not place anybody there at all from whatever time. The difficulty always comes then, though, is you've got people living there. So while we could say we won't place anybody else there, the people who are living there, obviously they've got a choice to stay, because most people tend to like where they're living. And, you know, we might not think it's the best provision in the world, but as long as it's not actually dangerous to people and causes safeguarding concerns, and then we have to listen to the individuals concerned. And I know previously we've had some real difficulties in homes where individuals have said, no, I want to stay, I'm quite happy here. And but we don't think that the care is good. So there's a number of different options. Ultimately, the sanction is, you know, CIW can close them down. We can refuse to place anybody else there.
I asked that question particularly because I know that a problem I had with somebody on my ward was solved very well. Thank you very much for that. And so it does work. Yes. Emrys, did you want to come back?
Yes, if I could just come back, please. I'm sure that the county do their best to respond to the needs. What are the arrangements then if a situation arises where you have one resident in a care home who is out of his or her area, who can only communicate through the medium of Welsh, be in the condition? What would the arrangements be? What would the county ensure to help that resident in those circumstances? Especially maybe in private homes more than the county homes. I'm thinking of Dolwen and Cysgod of Gaer, but obviously it's a problem in all homes. But more to the north, maybe towards in the private homes, maybe there are fewer or more of a possibility for that to happen.
I mean, having spent time in Dolwen over the pandemic period, the amount of Welsh spoken by the staff is great. I don't think we have any complaints in our own care homes around Dolwen or Cysgod about Welsh speaking. I mean, the bottom line is our first and foremost consideration is meeting the physical health and social care needs of an individual, and we will always take account of their language needs within that. There are times when we can't find a home that will provide that can provide a Welsh language service, not will provide one, can provide one, and we can do things like we can provide advocacy to ensure that you know, Welsh speaking advocacy to ensure that individuals can have their voice heard during their stay. We can offer the thing like befriending services where people can actually have more contact, because an advocate can't necessarily be available on a weekly or even a daily or a weekly basis, but a befriending service could. So there's a range of options we can do. The bottom line is there's always times when, unfortunately, the needs of the individual are so specific that where we need to place them, there aren't any Welsh speaking staff, and you know, that is really, really unfortunate.
Okay.
If I could come in briefly to respond to that, accepting that there are steps that are possible to get people to help, for example, that brings a third person into the conversation quite often, and I think there is a block then in communication. It's not as direct. Could I ask one other question? Shouldn't we then as a county be ensuring, you know, there are many carers out there these days that there have been for years, correct me if I'm wrong, but shouldn't we be trying to ensure that there is a pool of Welsh speakers available almost on a supply list if necessary?
That's really, really difficult in terms of the way that independent sector homes work, and they're staffed according to the needs of, you know, according to the size of the establishment and the health and needs of individuals. The affordability of bringing in additional staff to do that is probably really, really difficult. And I mean, I'm not sure that there is actually a pool of carers sitting there not working with the Welsh language skills required. The recruitment of carers at the moment is probably as difficult as it has ever been. Trying to recruit carers to domiciliary care and residential care is really, really difficult, and that's a national issue. It's not a Denbighshire issue. I mean, it's always been difficult. Welsh Government are looking at it, CIW are looking at it, Social Care Wales are looking at it. I know Nicola has been involved as the Director of Social National Director, whatever, President of ADSS, that's what she was until very recently, has been involved in that work as well. I mean, it is really, really difficult. There are so many other opportunities for people other than care, that it for a lot of people, it isn't their first choice of a career. I know
Jeanette, sorry, could I just come into that? I can see other hands up, but just to add into Emrys's, I was going to sort of bring up the same question that Emrys has brought up, or a similar question, in that I wondered if we could look into not professional carers, but people who are volunteers. We talk about community resilience, and volunteering opportunities have never been more strong than they are now post-pandemic. And I wondered if we could look into people who would volunteer to be translators, not carers, but people who could be, cleared in order at the end of a phone call, even, they could even be phoned to come and use their language skills, possibly. It's just a thought. It maybe is something we could look into, because on the coastal areas where there's not the rural area provision for Welsh language, as Emrys says, there are difficulties in parts of Denbighshire where the Welsh language is not as strong as it is in other parts. So it might be something worth looking into.
I think, sorry if I wasn't clear enough before, Bobby, but that's what the befriending work is about. It's not, it's about what are the needs that can't be met. And that's what advocacy is about as well. So the volunteers that we've recruited throughout the last 12 months, which has been more than we've done ever before, we are looking to continue to use those to do exactly that, where they can speak Welsh. So, and we've got, I mean, we do have, obviously we've got the More Than Just Words strategy that we've got, which is obviously all about the Welsh language. And Margaret, our lead on that, has done a lot of work with providers in trying to ensure that they do have Welsh speakers. But at the end of the day, trying to recruit staff, we know in the council, if we put in our adverts Welsh speaking is essential, we get very, very few applicants. If we put Welsh speaking is desirable, we get lots of applicants. It is really, really difficult to recruit at the moment.
I will let this topic go now. I would like to have the conversation out of this meeting another time, though. Thank you.
All right. Okay. You're happy with that then, Emrys?
Yes.
All right. Thank you for that. Let's bring in Rhys.
Okay. Diolch yn fawr iawn, Cadeirydd.
Thank you, Chair.
Rhys, can you just switch off your video while you're talking? We're buffeting.
Is this matter that Emrys Wynne mentioned, is it something that we should look into when the services are procured? I'm going back one step and looking at the procurement, and maybe we should ensure that any services that we buy in, that they are aware of that need. Thank you.
That is part of our tendering process. We do include Welsh language as part of the contract, and we ask that they fulfil obviously the More Than Just Words policy, but also that they actively recruit Welsh speakers where that's required.
Okay.
Okay. Diolch yn fawr.
Thank you.
Melvin, would you like to come in?
Oops. Hello. Thank you, Chair. On page 24, it's mentioned statistics indicate that once admitted to a care home for short-term support other than respite, a person's chance of returning to their own home is significantly reduced. So obviously we're doing as much as we can to keep them in their own homes, which is, I guess, the whole idea of the direct payments and all that. So what is the main challenge in that? Is it the fact that it costs too much to sort of keep them in their own home? Obviously, it costs a lot more for them to go into a care home. So what I'm trying to say is, could we incentivize the families to keep these, to keep the people who've got maybe dementia, could we financially incentivize them more? Because once they go into a care home, they're kind of lost, aren't they? I mean, I don't mean that in an awful way. I mean, it's not as good as being at home. And I'm not sure if there's a question there. It's just that I'm trying to, figure this. It's much better to keep them in their homes than it is to go into a care home.
Absolutely. Yeah, we totally agree, Melvin. Our whole strategy is about how do we keep people at home for as long as possible? Because, everybody tells us, maybe 99.9% of people tell us they don't want to go into a care home. They want to live at home. The difficulty at the moment is a push around from Welsh Government about discharge to recover and assess. So if somebody's in hospital, as soon as humanly possible that they can get out of hospital, then they need to get out. Often there isn't the level of support available in the community immediately. And what the intention discharge to recover and assess is that individuals can move into a care home supported by a health and social care team as well as the care home to actually bring them up to a level of functioning that allows them to go home again. Unfortunately, we don't always get the follow-up from our colleagues in health, or sometimes we don't even know that actually individuals are being discharged to a care home, and we get a phone call from the care home 2 weeks later to say what's happening about Mrs. Jones. So that is a difficulty in terms of incentivising. Obviously, the direct payments and support budgets are there to do that. The individuals can use a support budget to do virtually anything that will help them achieve their outcomes, and in this case to remain at home. So they can use that to pay their family, they can use it to pay their neighbours, they can use it to buy things, a whole range of different things. Again, one of the issues that we come down to is recruitment to domiciliary care. While it's difficult to recruit to residential care, that's still easier than recruiting to domiciliary care for a range of reasons. People in care services are not the highest paid people in the world. We know that. And actually in a residential setting, you're in a fixed base, you've got set rotas, you've got, often in domiciliary care settings, you need to travel, you might need to use a car, you might not be able to afford that car. There's a whole range of different things that create that. And that is something that I say Nicola and colleagues across Wales have been looking into in terms of taking that forward. In terms of one particular gap for us as well, in terms of the discharge to recover and assess, is the therapies. So physiotherapy and occupational therapy is really difficult to get hold of as well in terms of our health colleagues. Our work moving forward in terms of relation to community resource teams should help us address some of that. But while we're very clear that our social work teams and our district nurse teams are working very closely together to do that, we've still got some way to go in terms of our therapy teams, I think, because they're so short on the ground compared to district nurses and social workers. But the sooner we can get them part of the CRT and we can start then working as a full team, we will know exactly where people are and what they need to get them out of these residential care homes. Because the research is, if you're in there for 6 weeks, you will have lost so much mobility, so much motivation, so many life skills that you will not be function back in home, which is very, very sad.
Can I ask you, Phil? On the extra care housing, can people actually buy them?
They can, technically. It doesn't work out financially really very well because they're very, very expensive because of the spec of them. If you look at the cost to build compared to the market value, the cost to build is much higher than the market value. So individuals, if they were looking to mortgage, they wouldn't get a mortgage to the cost of the flat.
Could you give us a rough idea how much they are?
Sorry, Jeanette.
Sorry, could you give us a rough idea how much they would be?
if for example, a flat in one part of the county was say £150,000, then the cost of an extra care flat in the same place would probably cost £250,000.
Goodness me, that's a lot of difference.
Yeah, there's a lot of things around extra care. Obviously, there's the communal areas, and a whole range of different things that there's the concierge service, a whole range of things that you have to buy as well. So it does bump the price up.
I asked that question because we did have a field trip once to Liverpool and on the Wirral to look at these extra care housing before we had any. It was fascinating. And some were little bungalows, some were apartments, 2-bedroom apartments. And most of those that we spoke to, the people in them, had purchased them. But they were told that they had to sell them to like-minded people, and one of which of a couple had to have had, or an individual had to have some sort of disability or ill health, should we say. So why haven't we done that? Is that because they cost so much? And
we did,
compared to Liverpool, are ours so expensive?
And obviously I don't know what Liverpool did, but in terms of there's a way of doing it. I understand, where you can say, you know, it's a conditional sale, so you might not pay the full market value for it. You know, you might pay the market value, but not the cost. But as you say, when you no longer require that, you can't sell it on the open market. You can only sell it on to somebody else.
That's
now,
right.
we don't own the extra care housing; it's owned by housing associations.
And that's what I'm getting at.
Yeah, none of it is ours at the moment. That's not to say that won't be forever. I hope you've all read the briefing note around Corwin and Cuscar Gair and Gadog. So you know, there are things that we're looking at that we can own our own extra care housing. But again, I don't think we would sell it. I think if we owned it, it would be part of our community housing stock, and we wouldn't want to sell that. We would keep it for our citizens, and so
it's just that I've been around here that long now. I remember when we first had the first extra care housing built, it was said that they could be purchased on the same grounds as Liverpool, but it's never happened. And I just wondered why that was.
I do think that, was it the real one that was the first one?
Yeah, it was.
I do think they are still open to sale. But you know, who's got the real one? There's too many housing associations around.
Clwyd Allen, I think.
Yeah. So did Clwyd Allen got pressed? I'm not sure. Anyway, I think they as a housing association are still open for them to be sold, but it's not. And I don't know whether they've explored any further that option.
They did market them, Phil. They did market them in the beginning, but they didn't get any take up. Or very little take up, so that's why it came you know, to be under the circumstances it is now. There was literally no take up for the buying side, so they had a change of policy, I think, within the housing association.
Okay. Obviously that was before my time. I'm sorry.
It's all right. Okay. And Hugh, where's Hugh?
I'm here.
Morning,
thank you. Mine's a generalised sort of question. As a ward councillor, with a resident that's in a very poor state health, has been in hospital, has been in the hospice for a week, has been discharged back home, and obviously, as a one can have no input whatsoever because you're not a family member. So the first thing when anybody speaks to you is you have to say straight away, look, these are confidential matters. People to
just turn off your video. You turn off your video because you're buffeting.
Sorry, I'm buffeting. Sorry.
Just turn off your video.
How's that? I just say, to whom do you direct a resident's family when they say, look, we're desperate, we've got a crisis, to whom do we go? I mean, all I end up saying, well, the SPOA team, or whatever.
That is the place to go. That is the place to go. Hugh.
It is full, is it?
Yeah,
So
that's
when
what
you
it's
get
set up for. And,
Yeah,
and
so-
the single point of access is joint with health now as well. So you know, the single point of access will talk to the GP, will talk to the nursing team, will talk to the social work team, can talk to the hospital, and be the hub of all of that knowledge, and direct any inquiry then to the relevant part of the service, so that the individual themselves doesn't have to worry about who they need to ring or what they need to do. So
Right.
Spoke is the place.
So
Yeah, they're very
so
good.
the advice was correct.
Yes, absolutely.
Start with the SPOA team.
Yeah.
But you've got to then, the family member then has to explain the situation clearly, isn't it? So the
Oh, well, yeah,
SPOA team
absolutely,
can
yeah,
pick
yeah.
up on
Yeah.
the signals.
Yeah, totally.
And you can help them, Hugh.
Yes. Yeah.
You can help them do that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Merrick, I'm not ignoring you, I'm sorry, but I will let members ask the questions first, but I will get back to you. I know that you're waiting there, sorry. I want to ask, you know, with the daycare centres, just give us an update how that's going, because, you know, I was very keen for those to continue.
Mm.
And I just wondered, I've made a note on page 29. You know, we closed quite a few of them to private enterprise, and how are they working? How are they doing? What can people do when they're on their own like me, and I'm lonely and old and I need to get out?
Well, you don't need to go to a daycare centre, Jeanette. You need to do something in your community with your friends, don't you? That's what you need to do.
Play
You
golf.
don't need to go to a daycare
I
centre.
play golf in Preston, so I'm all right, but I just
Absolutely, and most people would want to do that. Most people would want to, you know, go and have a coffee in Costa. Well, I wouldn't personally. I think why anybody drinks Costa coffee, I have no idea. But anyway, have a Costa with your mate. It's like, well,
so you won't be meeting me tomorrow for a coffee then? No?
not for the Costa. I'll bring my jar of Nescafe with me. It'll be fine.
Okay.
So I don't think at this point in time, and Ben may well correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think any of the day centres are currently open because of COVID. So I mean, we have a range of opportunities, and we're always open to conversations about more. But the way we fund daycare services, if we commission them, we fund them on a session basis. I think we pay per half day, I think, or full day if people want that. And in some respects, the advent of direct payments and support budgets will eventually, I think, see less use of daycare, because people will use that fund to do things in the community with a support worker or a friend or a neighbour or whatever. That actually, I mean, I always come back to the example of you know, the individual who to achieve his outcomes for his own well-being, he used to go to the match every week. He couldn't do it anymore because he's too frail. But his neighbour has agreed to take him, and what he did was he used his support budget to buy his neighbour's season ticket. Now that sounds, oh my God, we're using public money to allow. That was a lot cheaper than saying to a care agency, can you come and send a carer and pick him up and take him to the football and sit with him for 90 minutes, well, 2 hours by the time you're there and done. And it's you know, so much cheaper. And actually, you know, it enabled him to remain part of the community and actually grow his friendship circle, which was great. So I think we will see more and more use of direct payments for things that mean that actually buildings-based services are not needed as much as they were previously.
Okay.
You know, previously they were the only thing we had, but we've got a lot of other options now. So
When we used to do the rota visits, though, I was always impressed how.
yeah, absolutely, yeah.
And the garden centre. We don't do that now, I know, but
They were of the time, weren't they? I mean, it's like standard.
excuse me, are you saying I'm old?
I know, I think they were of their time. I remember being in day centres with citizens. God, many years ago when I was in Wirral, I think we had one of the biggest learning disability day centres in Europe. I think at the time in Moore.
Of course, they used to be referred by the GPs, didn't they?
Yeah.
And that all stopped. So it's a shame. Do you know, it's frightening how many questions I've got for you here. And I know that Nicola has to go, so I will cut a little bit. But Just tell us more on page 30, on page 40 and 34. Same thing, really. Just tell us about the extra, the carers' breaks and where they go.
Oh, again, it's how long is a piece of string? I mean, the traditional respite care is in a
Respite, yeah, these hotels you use it.
Well, I mean, traditional respite care was we've only got a care home we could use. Well, if people have got a support budget, they can, you know, sometimes a break isn't about I can't stand Johnny next to me anymore. He needs to get out. Sometimes a break is we just need a change of scene. And so if they've got a support budget, they could use that to spend a night in a hotel somewhere. They could choose to use the money to have a carer come into the home to look after Johnny, and they could go to a hotel. They'd have to pay for the hotel themselves then, but the carer would be paid for through the support budget to look after their loved one. It's just, you know, caravan. We've done things like we've paid the site fees for a caravan for somebody, because that was a carer living with somebody with dementia, and that really worked for them, because the caravan, the individual with dementia knew very, very well, was very comfortable, felt very safe, and the individual was able then to relax, and you know, the carer was able to relax, and it was great. So it's there's no set, you can only do this, you can only do that, you can only do the other. It's come up with an imaginative solution for you, and we'll see if we can help you do that.
Just being really nosy now. How much do they get?
Again, there's no set fee. It's the direct payments there is a set fee for direct payments, which is generally used for an individual to buy a carer for a set number of hours, and that I think, unless Ben corrects me again, is about £12 an hour, something like that.
You know, I was just thinking that with them buying football tickets and all this sort of thing, how much they got, you know.
Well, you know, I'm not sure a season ticket to a real football club is that expensive, to be fair, you know.
No.
Yeah. And I think the price of the Liverpool one's going down after last night's kicking out of the European Champions League, but never mind.
Shame.
Shame. It was a shame.
Okay. So any other members now wanting to ask a question? Oh, Reese, yes.
Thank you, Chair. I'll put the camera off. I've got two questions. I find it very difficult to find any criticism of this report today, because early intervention is something we all approve of. Assessing future needs, we've obviously got to do that. And if it all leads to providing a better service, then nobody on this scrutiny committee is going to object to that. However, what this document that we've got before us is, it's a policy document. It's the intention of what the service will be doing. Now, I think we got into a little bit of hot water about changes in the homelessness team a short time ago, and I think I've learnt my lesson that we're involved with policy, and that Phil will be happy to know that I understand the difference between policy and operational matters. But the problem is that we don't exactly know in which direction these things we're discussing today will go. And the problem is that members of staff who are involved, the press will get involved, families of staff, if their job descriptions change, contact their local members, and the users of these services that are changing contact local members. So my first question is there some way that members can be informed of these major operational matters, not to get involved? We're not the experts in that. We're happy to leave that to the officers, but somehow we need a heads up that some of these changes are happening, so that we're able to respond to people who come and ask us, why is this service changing? Why can't they do this anymore? So that's my first question. Is there some way that members could be informed before major operational matters take place so that we can answer people in our wards? That's the first question. I can just give the second one, is that this time of COVID has been very distressing, and it's been very disruptive and negative in so many ways. Have lessons been learned? Has anything positive come out of this? Have any lessons been learned about better ways of doing things? So that's a very general one for the two of you. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you.
In terms of members being informed about changes, this market position statement isn't necessarily designed to herald a massive amount of change. You know, in terms of the care services that we've got, most of them are in the independent sector, and most of them will continue to be in the independent sector. This basically is a document that says to the market, this is what we are looking for in the future. Now we know, you mentioned COVID, we know post-COVID that the numbers of people living in residential care has reduced by about 100 people. I think we normally have 100 empty beds a week in Denbighshire. I think we've got about 200 empty beds a week at the moment. And there is a likelihood on that basis that things will change for some providers, because actually we don't need them anymore. But that's about independent sector provision and not about our own provision. And you know, individual providers will need to determine what they do in terms of looking at this market position statement and saying, you know, well, actually, what we could do is something different. Could we turn our facility into some type of extra care? You know, that would be an ideal for me, but it's not always easy because CIW are not necessarily on board as we might be in terms of being flexible about, well, this week it's residential care, next week it's something else. So the changes aren't necessarily about council services. You know, we yes, as you mentioned, we've come through a consultation exercise with our homelessness team. We've just come through a consultation exercise with our direct care support team, which are those domiciliary care workers, extra care workers, supported independent living people, to bring them together into one team. You are aware of the engagement that we're doing in Denbigh around what's the future of services in Denbigh. So as a local group of members in the MAG, you are aware of what we're looking at and what we're exploring there, and we'll continue to do that. And at a relevant time, if we needed to make any major change in Denbigh from our point of view in terms of our services, we would bring that through scrutiny and cabinet, because if we were looking at anything, it wouldn't be a minor change, it would be a big change. So that wouldn't be an officer decision to make, that would be a member decision to make. So okay. And also then in terms of, you will have seen the Corwin note, you know, again, if we follow that through to its conclusion, that will be a major change, and again that will come through scrutiny and cabinet.
Okay, thanks. Moving quickly on, Bobby, you wanted to come in?
Yeah, well, just to add really to what Phil said, when Rhys asked, have we, you know, learnt anything, and are things going to be different going forward because of what we've learnt during the pandemic? You know, I think we have learnt lots of things. I'll just give you a small example. A few weeks ago, I attended a learning disability conference. It was over 2 days, and I dipped in and out. But we would never have done that. And this was service to people with disability, absolutely embracing doing this conference online, being part of the organising team, taking part, talking, you know, being able to cope with IT better than I can. Not that that's saying much, but, you know, so that's something we hadn't explored before, and something that is obviously we're going to embrace going forward, because, you know, people's skills in that department are immense. or some people. The other thing that's come out really well, I think, is community involvement and how much people whether it's telephoning people who are shielded or, you know, just delivering food parcels, you know, doing stuff at Christmas, you know, the community involvement side of things has been good. And slightly more controversially, I would say personally, I think that there is a lot more cohesive working with NHS, with BCU in our case. I think that's taken strides forward, which we are going to benefit from in the future. And as you've already heard, changes to the way we deliver our homeless services to focus on prevention and working so much better with housing now. So I think lots of good things have come. As much as I have not enjoyed this year of being imprisoned within my own home and garden, and I hate not being able to, you know, talk to people and physically contact people generally, there have been lots of positives, which I think this statement today actually reflects quite a lot of that. And, you know, I think that's why we brought it forward at this time.
So, sorry, Chair, I should have added in changes and things that obviously I sent a briefing out to members as well about the new white paper on rebalancing care and support. So there will be changes to come in relation to that moving forward, and also that members will remember, some members will remember sitting on the task and finish group looking at the changes to our care and support services. Started 4 years ago maybe, and maybe even longer, and won't be finished before some of us are not here, and it has in retired. I mean, not necessarily dead. I didn't mean anybody might be dead, but we might be retired. Stop digging a hole.
Yeah, I think as long as we're doing everything we can for our elderly,
absolutely,
and those with difficulties, and looking at this, the increase in dementia patients is really a worry, and absolutely. Hopefully they're looking into the causes and cures, but luckily I feel with these documents we are going definitely in the right direction. And I'm really glad about that. So I'll have the last say now from our chairman. Merrick, are you still with us?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I won't keep you long. I've got two questions, if I may. Page 9 in the Welsh version, 1.1. There is an abbreviation there, DSF, market situation statements, but in 1.2 it says D(o)SF is what appears in the report. Which one is correct, or are they both correct? And my second question, Councillor Emrys Wynne and Councillor Bobby Feely drew attention to this. On page 19, second paragraph from the bottom, it says, so we will be trying to use with and commissioning, have meaningful conversations with people. Is it possible to put in their first language, not only that Welsh language speakers need care, you can have people from abroad, from India and so on, who live locally, and the older generation may have never learned to speak English or Welsh, obviously. Maybe it would be useful to include that there, please.
Emrys touched on this earlier, so yeah. Bobby or Phil?
I think we can add that into that second point we can add in. I can't find the DSS, the DOFS bit. What did you say, page 9?
That's in the Welsh version.
Could it be?
I'm sorry, I haven't got a copy of the Welsh version.
No,
to help you.
It could be a typo, perhaps the O. I don't know.
We'll have a look and come back to you, Mary.
If you look at the full word title in Welsh, it says Statement, D-O, of the situation, and F, the market in Welsh.
Right.
I
Okay.
can see where the O comes from, but I don't know why the first abbreviation in page 1 on point 1.1 doesn't include the O. That was my query. Anyway, thank you.
So, yeah, if it's wrong, we'll take it out. And just
I would say that is something to do with the translation. I'll look into that for you.
All right,
Okay, right, let's go to the recommendations, and they're on page 10, 3.1. Agrees that community support services, MPS, reflects and understands the local market and businesses of local providers, and that it clearly sets out how the current and future range of care and support will be influenced and tailored to respond to specific local issues and support the delivery of key corporate and CSS priorities. And 3.2 feeds back any comments and recommendations as necessary. And 3.3 confirms that it has read, understood and taken account of the wellbeing impact assessment appendix 2 as part of its consideration. So do I have a proposer? Thank you, Melvin, and a seconder. Thank you, Emrys. I think that was a really good report, and it was well worth reading. Okay, thank you. Would you? Oh, I'm sure they are, but I did. Is everybody in agreement? Yes, thank you. Now, would you like a 5-minute break, or would you like us to go on to item 6? Show of hands to go on. Okay. Rian?
Right,
Thank you for that. Scrutiny work programme. This is the usual programme. In Appendix 1, you will see the forward work programme as it stands at the moment. But before I move on to that, I'd like to draw your attention to paragraph 4.8 in the report itself, which talks about a discussion that you've asked for a while back now with the health service about heart failure services in Denbighshire and its impact on council social care services. That's been on the back burner for a while because we have been trying to get representatives from the health board to come and discuss this issue with you. I've had confirmation now that they can attend on the 8th of July. So that item has been moved now on your work programme to the 8th of July, if that's all right with you.
Fine. That's really good, thank you.
In paragraph 5, Scrutiny Chairs and Vice Chairs Group, at the last meeting on the 11th of March, we had a request for the item that you've just discussed now. So that has been dealt with today. Also at that meeting, the Chairs Group did discuss the work programme North Wales Economic Ambition Board. This committee has been nominated by the council to scrutinise the work of that group. So they have got a timetable now of when their reports are due to be published. That is in paragraph 5.2 in your reports. And what the Chairs Group decided was, following a pattern similar to what happens with the corporate plan that goes to the performance scrutiny, where they invite the report and a person to present it twice a year at the end of Q2 and Q4, and then both of the reports to be circulated to you for information. So the annual report of the Ambition Board is due to come out middle of May. So they will be in a situation, hopefully, to come to you at the end of May or beginning of June. Your next meeting is on the 20th of May, if I'm right. So are you happy for me to invite them to that meeting?
I'll be happy to do. Is everybody else happy about that? Yes, nods. Good.
A wedyn eitem arall.
And the other item that you have on the work programme for that meeting, and they've confirmed that they're available to attend, is the Health Board regarding the number of different projects that they've got across the county, such as the new hospital in Rill, the work that they've been doing in Ruthin and in other places. So that's an update from them on that situation, if you're happy with that. Those are quite bulky items.
So the 8th of May, yes?
No, 20th of May.
20th.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Good.
And the next meeting of the Chairs and Vice Chairs group is on the 29th of April. That's 2 weeks today. So if you have got a request to put forward, please fill in the form in Appendix 2 and submit it to me. If I could get it by next Monday, I can then ensure that the group consider it at that meeting at the end of April. Appendix 3 is the Cabinet Work Programme and Appendix 4 is the latest on your recommendations since the last meeting. The only other thing I've got to draw your attention to is the updates that I circulated the other day. It's for information reports on monitoring the quality of services provided by external carers. This question was raised this morning. I think Phil answered it regarding how complaints are dealt with. That's a quarterly report that comes to you, so it's included in that document for information. And that's it, I think.
That's lovely. Thank you very much, Rhian. Everybody happy with that? I'm early for once, aren't I?
Yeah, is there any feedback?
What do you think about that? Any feedback from any reports? We haven't got no, we haven't got Christine here for an update on hers. Anybody else? No, nothing. Okay, so it's really class dismissed, isn't it?
Thank you,
There's
teacher.
there's no chocolate. There's no box of biscuits.
Well, as you can see, Reese, I've eaten them all.
My
Anyway.
husband just brought me in a mint humbug. That was nice.